Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Castriota, and welcome back to the Higher Ground podcast. Whether you're grinding through yet another job application, navigating a tough work environment, or just trying to level up your career, you've found your show. Each episode, I sit down with guests ranging from the C-suite to folks just starting out in their career for honest, unfiltered conversations about interviewing, managing, and everything in between. No corporate spin, no polished PR answers, just real conversations, real stories from people who've been there. This is season 2, and I'm so glad you're here for it. A quick note, all opinions are our own and don't represent any current or past employers. And if this sounds like your kind of show, then please hit like and subscribe. And once again, thank you for joining us. And on to today's episode. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Higher Ground podcast. I'm very excited today to have my friend Funmi Balogun, who Funmi and I've worked at a number of companies together, and that number is 2. And we worked at a government-sponsored entity, we'll say, down in Washington, D.C. I'll just say a bunch of years ago because I don't like that number. But it's been quite a few years, and then more recently, side by side on a team together at a financial services company. I left, and I'm at my current place, but Funmi's stayed and is now a senior director. But rather than me continuing to pretend I know all about your storied career, perhaps you can tell our audience about yourself.
Yeah. So thank you, Tom, for having me. I know this has been quite a journey in the making for us to come together here. So I have been in the data space for a number of years, not necessarily trying to date myself. I started my career in banking, and I will say that the discipline and the rigor that I had in the early days of my career really has, looking back now, prepared me for the role that I'm filling right now and the roles that I have filled in the data management space. It's also very exciting to see after this number of years that the data space is just exploding, right, with so many areas that we had not even imagined, right, a number of years ago that are now evolving. It's now the sexy topic when you go to different conferences and sessions. And so it's very encouraging, and it's really validating for me that I chose this path. And I didn't choose the path chose me.
That's how it works, right?
Yeah, so it's been a great journey. It's been a successful career for me, and really
Awesome.
looking forward to spending a few more years in this space.
That's good. Yeah, no, that's great. I'm curious. Before I'm going to ask some of my classic this or that questions. But I am very curious how you first entered the data space. But before we do that, let's get grounded on some some basic questions around important things like this or that. Would you prefer pizza or would you prefer bagels?
Man, I'm a bagel girl.
Yeah. Plain or any particular type, or
I love the sesame seed. I love the plain, and I also love the everything bagel because I just love that burst of flavor that you get, and I can eat it with nothing on it. So pretty simple. Okay. Yeah. And New York style bagel all day long.
Come on, you can't. Yeah,
you can't go wrong with that.
These are easy. There's no wrong answer. So let's see. So given depending what city you're in, obviously, but would you go for a yellow cab or would you prefer an Uber?
Oh my gosh, Uber.
No, please.
It's so funny. I just had an experience. I was in New York City last month for leadership training, and I had to take a yellow cab. I don't know why, but I was just like, never again. I'm sorry. I know some people love taking the yellow cab, and for me, I just can't. So Uber or Lyft.
They've changed the game, and yellow cabs. It's funny. I agree with you, and I've noticed that I'd always hoped that Uber over the years would make them step up their game, create the cleaner car, better experience, but sadly, it's rare. It's very rare to actually.
They missed it. Yeah, it was a very not clean experience, and for me, it's like you're really paying the same amount,
by and large. Yeah,
exactly. So you kind of expect a little bit more cleanliness, and so I didn't get that. So enough.
Understood. Yeah, understood. I think my position has changed. It used to be yellow cab all the time because I want to give these guys, the money and the opportunity. But
Yeah.
like you got to up your game. It's competition now. You got to up your game. So dogs or cats?
I'm sorry today. My apologies for the cat lovers out there. I cannot stand cats. I just can't.
She went in spicy, just spicy answer.
Yeah. No, no cats for me. Yeah, dogs all day.
I
So
love it. I love it. Do you have a
my
dog, or have you had dogs
grandmother,
in the? Yeah.
we did. We've had dogs, and our last one died. He got old,
Well,
and
that's
of course, yeah. So, and I think just going through that experience just has really scarred me. That like I don't know that I can go through it again to have another dog to take care of. Knowing that they're going to get to that end
I
state,
know.
and then you're going to have to put diapers on them and clean up after them and
Sure.
just take care of them. It's okay to take care of them, but then you have to watch.
But yeah,
Watch
no,
them
they don't
grow.
live long enough. And no, I know. I am presently pugless. I had pugs for many years, as you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
my lifestyle doesn't permit yet. But I
yeah.
will again. I will take
You
them
will
on.
again.
Right,
Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I'm not fully recovered. The healing, I'm still healing from the loss.
Yeah, no, it takes a long time. I've had friends say that. I don't think I'll ever recover from this. I don't think.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand. It's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a lot.
So on a more fun topic, do you
Hmm.
prefer to go out for dinner, or stay home and cook, or take
Hmm.
out maybe? What are your preferences there?
I do enjoy going out for dinner. Certainly, of the three, stay home and cook is not one. I love cooking, but just given in this season of my life, it's convenience, kind of like it's the card that trumps, right? So
Sure.
just ordering in is so much more convenient. I don't need to leave my office. I don't need to leave the house. So I think that maybe right now it's just do the order in. Ask me in a few months, and they might be like, no, of course, let's go out because things are a lot
It's
calmer and there's more capacity of
summertime.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Mhm.
And now this is a question that we couldn't ask back in the day, but in person interview or online? Like we used to always have to do in person, right? With all the
Yeah,
cost
and
and
now we
expense of flying
have.
people. Now it's a much bigger option. But if you're given your choice, if you could pick either one, what's your choice?
I love in person. I love face to face interactions, and so if I had a choice, I would choose in person. But of course, I know that that's not always an option.
Sure.
So I flow just as well with
Yeah.
online, but if my preference would be in person because I think it just helps to create a more intimate exchange during that
Sure.
time and really not have the challenge of I feel like the screen still kind of like acts as a bit of a barrier between the two humans or the individuals during the interview. So in person is my preference.
So tell me a bit how you got into data. We started there, but like I'd love to hear your story about, like you said, it found you, but what was that entry point? What made you begin down this path?
So I actually, so I was perfectly happy working at a bank. The bank is now Truist, so that's where I started my career. It was not Truist then, so I didn't just start my career because I know Truist just evolved in the last couple of years. The bank had done some acquisitions along the way, and so I started my career. I went through the management training program, so I was actually a very young banker. I was doing commercial, account management for large commercial accounts like Innova Hospital. So doing overnight investment repo and so on and so forth. So I was very happy there. And then I was pursuing my MBA at American University. There was an on-campus job, fair, something very small. So I went. It was a Saturday afternoon, I still remember, and I ran into an alumni who was also an HR director at
Hmm.
Fannie Mae. And we were just talking, and she said, would you like to talk to some people at Fannie Mae? I said, okay, sure. I'm perfectly happy where I am. I spent 3 years working at the bank at that time. And so that following week, I think early in the week, she rang me up and said, two of the directors would like to speak with you. And I'm thinking, okay, let's do it. And one of the directors ended up to be the data sort of financial analyst position, doing a lot of data analysis and data reconciliation in the data warehouse. And so that's how I ended up in the data space, right? So I took that job, started working there. And one thing led to the other, doing a lot of Excel manipulation, a lot of monthly reconciliation of all of the loan originations, all of the loan data that we're trying to securitize. And so that's really how the data career
It
found
started.
me. I was sitting happy in the bank, being a banker.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. I didn't realize that was your first foray into data.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
it
that's where
was,
we met.
yeah,
A
yeah.
couple of years
That
ago, right?
a few years ago,
Yeah,
right? We just
a
a
few
few
years
years
ago.
ago.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, so you talk about creating this data management culture, right? So how do you get employees, especially at like a large company where you've got a distributed workforce globally, how do you get them to care about data quality?
Yeah. So it has not been easy. Just when I look at my journey, and I've done this data governance and analytics, strategy, governance, management space, both as an employee and also running my own business. I had my own
Hmm.
consultancy for 6 years, and it's the same challenge, right? So for many organizations, everyone is busy, and data is just one of those things that it's just there,
Hmm.
right? It's just there and it works. For the most part, it works. So getting, individuals within an organization to care about it, one, they actually have to see the passion that you bring to the table.
That's for sure.
They have to see the passion that you bring to the table. They have to also see your expertise. That expertise matters, right? And so, because then, that also imbues credibility that
Sure.
you know what you're talking about. They have to see you as someone who is ready to solve problems.
Hmm.
And so, being a data person, even at a higher level in one's career, you have to be able to roll up your sleeve and be willing to roll up your sleeve and get really in the data trenches, right? Um, and understand the detail. And so when you now show up at the table and you're working with business leaders, finance leaders, helping to solve problems, helping to identify data products that can help them get their product out to market faster, to help them identify compliance or regulatory requirements that really anchor on data, customers' data, privacy of that data, security of that data, that you're able to bring solutions to the table, then they
Hmm.
welcome you, right? And then also you have to really look at it as a process. It is
Hmm.
a process. So bringing a culture of data hygiene, data awareness, data maturity, respect for data, all of those things, right? It really takes all of the things I talked about. Your passion, you showing up to the table, passion, expertise, right? Just
Hmm.
knowing that, yes, I know. And then business understanding, because then that helps to create that affinity with the business that I've been a business person. I've been on that side. I
Yeah.
understand what the challenges are. And I understand, the trade-offs and the balancing act that the business leaders have to make. And then of course with your technology partners, you have to be able to speak technology.
Of, yeah, that your voice changes depending on who you're talking to, right?
Yes,
Absolutely.
that's absolutely, your voice has to change.
The interesting thing, a common question that I know we've experienced together in the different roles is one of particularly thinking about data quality. Do you block entry into the system in cases, or do you fix it later? Like this is
Mhm.
something that literally we wrestle with on a regular
Yes,
basis.
so what?
Love
That's
your
exactly
thoughts on
right.
that. I
Yeah.
know it's probably situational, but I'm curious your thoughts there.
It is situational. It's also just finding a sort of like a happy ground, so to
Mm,
say, right? So it's situational on one hand. It's also really meeting your constituents. What are you doing data quality for? So it's really looking inside out. I think I saw someone's post on LinkedIn recently about data governance. We start from the outside in, but it's inside out.
mm,
The challenges that the business stakeholder that you're interacting with, what are they trying to solve? And it's going to vary. So that we went through this and this, right? Data quality is not one size fit all.
correct.
There is no perfect, and there's no one size solution, right? And so someone's acceptable threshold of quality for, say, a finance user will be different from a marketing data user, maybe more so similar these days than before, but perhaps someone who's just using the data for research, right? And
Mm,
so really understanding what is the desired outcome for your constituents, whether it's at a micro level, it is individual domain or across multiple domains, and going after that. What is the crown jewel of data that
mm,
you really need to care the most about? And just having that, knowing that you have to be flexible in your approach. And I think when I look at new entrants into this data space, there isn't as much of that understanding of the need to be flexible. And so when you start talking or demonstrating flexibility, it can be misconstrued as, well, you're not taking a position or you're not taking a stance. Well, life is full of variabilities. And so you really need to be able to flow with what matters right now that we need to take care of. Doesn't mean that it's going to be the same thing that will matter a few months down the road or a few years back, right? And so just having that dynamic approach to looking at data quality and how you approach and how you come to it is important.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like when I think about some of the financial reporting that one would do, you've got to go down to the penny precision, right? You've got to make sure it's accurate to the decimal place and whatever that is. But then, like you said, if it's research, throw it all in there, figure it out, find the trends. Accuracy directionally matters. Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. And I do think that you bring up an interesting point. The notion that a flexible mind is an indecisive one, I think is like, I think that's a perception that's just not correct. The way to frame it, I like the way you framed it, right? It's that, well, in this situation, we'll take this path. In this situation, we'll do that path. Being decisive, but giving you options, right?
It's giving you options. You're being decisive, right? With the facts that you have, the situation that you're trying to address, you have the facts to make your decision. So it's not that you're wavering on, well, I cannot decide. We can't decide which way this way. But the decision that we take for this situation A will be different, could be different from what we take in situation. And I think that's really common sense, but you don't always see it in practice, right?
Understood. When you think about scaling your organization, right? So you go from a team to a group to a division to a global organization, particularly in the stewardship governance sort of sphere. What do you see as the most important trait for choosing people to lead those initiatives?
So having the individuals that can influence. Right. So influencing is one of the most important leadership trait to have to bring to the table. And there's always that one can influence, right? Also having a willingness to serve is equally important. When you're trying to do something at the scale of, scaling data governance across medium-sized, large, even small organization, being attentive also matters, right? So you need to show up to the table with the ear to hear, right? What are the data challenges, and being able to absorb that. You have to rationalize what those data challenges are, and you have to find a common ground across your multitude of stakeholders, right? And if you take time to hear what those data challenges or gaps are, and if you take time to really think and figure out, okay, what are the common threads and themes that I'm seeing here? And then bring that together, come up with a solution that can unify and then be able to influence the adoption of those solutions. It's not an easy task by any means, but it is rewarding when you get to that place where, your business stakeholders are, conceiving of a new product idea. And they say, okay, well, we need to have our data governance. We need to have our data experts at the table so that they can help us, identify what's the place, where should we get the data from? What's the data that we should use? So just being able to scale is really more about the leadership qualities, the personality, the human aspect, being able to make that connections and influence. You're there because you have the expertise, right?
Right.
And
the knowledge is like table stakes. Yeah.
It's table stakes at this point. So it's like the individual interaction, right? It's okay, now we need to have this relationship. I need to understand your issues, your challenges. Why is the data why is it not observable? Why is it not useful? Why are we building an alternative solution when we already have an enterprise solution? It's help me help you make it work, make it do what you want it to do. And I think so that influencing and almost, that attitude of service. I'm serving you as a data person, as a data leader. I'm serving your need because data is an asset and I want to serve you and serve your needs with that asset.
I like that a lot. Yeah. I hope nobody ever says, I'm from data governance and I'm here to help. It's an old, terrible joke. That's like me. It's an old, terrible joke. No, that's terrific. I like that. I like the service. I like the notion of service. And I think what you're saying is an expression we use a fair bit as well, which is, this notion of leading through influence, not necessarily authority, right? You're able
That's
to
exactly
convince
right.
people to do the right thing because it's the right thing,
Because it's the right thing.
that's,
Leading through
I like it.
influence, leading through service, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if people see you doing what you're preaching, then it's a lot easier for them to get behind you and try it out. And then just also being there to pick up the if things are broken along the way when it comes to data, just be which will happen. Just being ready and willing to come in and do our cleanup.
Yeah, I'm chuckling because if things are broken, it's almost a given. It's when.
It's when exactly. Yeah, I should say it's
Yeah.
when things right, and so
Yeah.
just be ready to come in with the data cleanup crew.
It's
So, okay,
it's
let's.
it's yeah, it's always been very wild to me to think how we talk about data as an asset, and data is a valuable asset for the company. It's our most important, and yet we treat it sometimes like my friend Tom Redmond would say, like a second class citizen, right?
Yeah.
We don't necessarily put it at like a seat at the table. We think of it as and we need the data,
And exactly, and we need the data. Whereas you can't really do anything without the data. It's like the data needs to come first. And
agreed.
I don't know why that is, and I'm not sure, how we even begin to like change that mindset, even in the age of AI.
And that I was just going there. I think that's the idea, not the idea. That's the prerequisite, right? If there's a system that relies on data to come up with some outcome, that's true for every management report. That's true for this. But what we have in deterministic systems, right? That we get to check the data, we get to reconcile the data. When a system is essentially non-deterministic, making it up itself, essentially.
Yes, that's exactly right.
If it's based on faulty information, it's going to make faulty assertions.
It's gonna exactly you're gonna have faulty conclusions, right?
Yeah,
But yet we don't ask the question of the data, its availability, its rightness, the completeness of it before we say, okay, let's embark. We always think about, everything else, the systems, the application that we need to build, yada yada yada, and then okay, now let's go and talk about the data. Or we don't even talk about it. It's now we just assume. It's like, you have a friend that has been your best friend since forever, and you just take them for granted because you know that they're always going to be there. No matter how much nonsense you throw at them,
they tolerate you.
they'll tolerate you and they'll still figure out how to just be there for you. I don't know, maybe it's almost kind of like we have that relationship with data. The data is always going to be there.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah. Don't worry, I'll be here for you.
I'll be here for you.
That's really funny. I like it. I definitely enjoy. Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
and I'll keep growing and increasing in volume, but I'm still telling you that there's some brokenness here. But
sure, yeah, I know. Over the years, I too have increased in volume, so I can attest to that on a personal level. I would say I've definitely increased in volume. I'm on the downslope, which I'm happy about, but that's a concerted
trending
effort.
in the right direction. That's what it is.
I
Just
appreciate
trending
it.
in the right direction.
Yeah, that's exactly. We want to be in the right direction. Yeah, no. For myself, I made a choice. I actually consciously made a choice early in my career, and this I would say to young folks in their careers that are deciding where to go, particularly if they've taken this path, choosing application building, application development, et cetera, or down the data path. I think they've become more linked over the years, for sure. But I will say that I'm very happy with my choice. Like yourself, like it's fun to see at companies, you see folks over the years that you collect each other as friends and as colleagues, that we've solved similar problems. We've had this, but we've taken this sort of read path versus the right path, like, WRITE, right? Like
yes.
And,
we're reading, we're using, yep.
And versus building an application that's capturing the data, I'm going to instead process it, do management reporting, and back. That's what we used to call it back in the day. Remember MIS, Management Information Systems?
I was in the Financial Management Information Systems department when data found me. That was my
data found me.
First, when data found me.
I love it. No, I love that. So you've moved, right, like we talked about, right? So from this financial analysis space, obviously relying on data, into a higher, more executive position, global data leadership, I would say. What would you say are some of the pivots that you've made at different points in your career that have prepared you for this role today?
So I think one major pivot that I made was when I decided to exit from from one of the companies that I worked for. I had worked there for many years, and I was a senior leader, and I decided to exit. And what really propelled me or prompted me to doing that was I had been in financial services really, all my career at that time.
Mm,
And I wanted to really have an experience of working through different data type, like a whole different domain of data. We
mm,
talk about domains of data, right?
yeah,
So I really wanted to try something, to dive into healthcare data, to dive into hospitality data, retail data, just
interesting.
a different type of data. Because I knew that the challenges were the same. It's always about the availability of it, understandability of it, the blah 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 of it, all of this. It's the same and it has not changed, right? Even from many
It's
years
true.
ago to now, still the same. Who owns it? Blah blah blah. But I really wanted to have a much more robust experience that I can
Mm,
actually talk about all the different types of data that exist, that we produce as human beings, that we use
yeah.
in our businesses. And so I left my company, the company I was working with, and I started my own consultancy. And that led me down a path where I was able to work in hospitality. So I was
Mm,
actually, the metrics there are very different,
sure.
right? So they're not talking about QSIP numbers and all of those things, and
Settlement day, trade
they're not
day.
talking about
Yeah, yeah,
trade day,
yeah.
aggregated interest and
Exactly. Yeah.
transaction volume, and it's like that was
P&I,
crazy.
all the P&I you can handle. Yeah.
LTVs, scores and all of this
Oh
and
man.
that.
Yeah.
Debt to income ratios, right? You're getting
I'm getting
like
flashbacks.
you're getting flashback, right? But I really wanted to talk a different language when it came to data. And so that was an intentional decision that I made. And obviously, with my family supporting me, right? My kids were young, my husband was also
Yeah.
traveling. And I think looking back, it really was one of the best pivots that I've
That's
had to make in
fantastic.
my career, because I had to learn how to run a business.
Hmm.
I had to learn accounting. I had to learn bookkeeping. I had to learn, balancing the books, learn the hard way. And it took me back to when I was in undergrad, and I took an accounting class because I needed it. And it was like my worst class ever, ever. And so it went down in history as the worst class until then, when I was working on my MBA, right? This is just, interesting story. I was doing my MBA in management, information systems, and finance, and I had to take an accounting class. And I was determined that I was going to like be the best student. So my professor actually complimented, at that time I was not married, and he said, Miss Akisonia, you should really consider a concentration in accounting. And I was like, thank you, but no thanks.
Yeah.
So that was it. So now fast forward many years later, I'm running my business. So all of these basic accounting principles, like,
Ah,
oh my God, I thought I was done, done,
done with
done,
this. Yeah.
ever done with this. And I'm having to like relearn all of this, and not just learn it textbook style, but actually apply it,
Apply it.
right?
It's not just the, yeah, you need to,
It's
not
not
just the
just
principles. Yeah.
exactly. Like I have to look at the balance sheet. I have to look at the P&L. I have to look at all of the entries, my receivables, my payables. So thank God for QuickBook, right? But you still need to know what you're doing.
Sure.
Otherwise, as a business owner, you leave so much money on the table, which
Sure.
was, the mistake we made. But it was just really all around discipline, marketing my business, doing business development. I mean, it grew to a place where I was able to hire other consultants
That's
to
fantastic.
work with me, to take on contract opportunities. And that experience took me to healthcare. So I actually got to
Hmm.
work with healthcare data.
Oh,
I was
interesting.
able to dive into facilities data, believe it or not, higher
Like,
education, like as in facilities.
like the buildings, properties,
Yeah,
that sort of,
yeah.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Buildings, properties, stocks, all of the things
Wow.
that
The
it
asset, the
takes
hard
to
assets. Yeah.
manage to manage a university,
Wow.
large scale university. I had a contract, a consulting gig with them, and I had to have a couple of consultants work with me. So I had to learn that. And
Sure.
so it was a challenge to myself to see, like, am I able to pick up all of the skills along the way, and it really prepared me for the leadership opportunities that I then took on after running my business for about 6 years.
That's amazing. I did not, I don't think I've heard you. I don't think we've talked about that before. That's amazing. So I've got so many questions. One, I'm keen on understanding. I know you mentioned a few times your MBA. Do you think the cost is is astronomical, right? And the argument I've heard more from different professionals is that focus on your undergrad at an affordable, let's say maybe a state college or something, that the heavy bucks, if you would, or put the investment in the brand name MBA. I've also heard the other side of that coin being like, our MBA is even useful anymore. Like, so I'm curious your thoughts on that in terms of not just from hiring, but also like, I don't think you should just have a degree to get a job. I think there's learning in there that you should use to grow, et cetera. So I'm curious your take on that.
Yeah.
Should I or shouldn't I get the MBA? And what do you think about college?
So I do agree with you that, and again, it's all situational. Everything is situational, right? So, focusing on a more affordable undergrad that still has the core of challenging you to think, to be analytical, just be able to connect the dots, right? And then, moving on, you definitely want to have your MBA in a reputable school, like a school that, is pretty well regarded in terms of its, disposition or dispensation of the MBA degree, right?
Sure. Brand recognition is important.
Brand recognition is important because I do believe that when you start at that postgraduate, the schools that are highly branded, you do get something in return. There is also the network effect, right? So, you're getting into this network of colleagues, right? And so that also helps. Now, going back to, is an MBA even still worth it? I remember vividly as I was going through my MBA program, how my thinking started to change. Even after I finished, I had a couple of managers who actually who were managing me, or my directors at that time, that complimented and commented on what they saw as a difference between how I showed up, my ability to connect the dots, my ability to connect the dots, my ability to see, okay, there's a problem. Here's what we need to do. Here's how we need to solve this problem, and be able to come up with different options, and also be able to kind of like really work across a broad swath of stakeholders with different varying interests, and still be able to find a connecting thread.
Connection. Yeah.
Yeah, the connection, right? And so I felt it. I saw it in my work. It was seen in my work by others. And so I remember back then, I didn't go like on a national campaign or anything like that. But as I was having conversations with younger adults that I was mentoring, I was a young adult myself, just really emphasizing that if you can afford it, go get your MBA or get a master's degree. That postgraduate just really does something. Your undergrad, most of the kids, most of us, we're doing it to check the box. And we're doing it to a large extent for our parents. If you come from a family that education is, I know, right? You're like, fine, I'll get that degree. I mean, I think, I don't know, maybe it's changed a bit. I know my kids are there because all of my kids are in school. I have 3. But I think to a large extent, you're like checking off the box. Parents, this is that their dream. You're getting a degree. Okay, fine, you get a degree. The postgraduate, it's your choice. You're now choosing an area of passion. You're not choosing something that you see as really unlocking your superpower, like really helping you to unlock your superpower, right? And be able to learn and be able to do things and think about problems and problem solving in different ways that really you're not going to get in the workplace.
Interesting.
Because you come to work. Sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
Yeah, because you come to work and you're good at plumbing. Well, that's what they're going to have you do. Just going to do plumbing because you're just good at it.
Excellent plumber. She's a great plumber. Yeah.
Now, if you want to do other things and you want to be the manager of the plumbing department and you want to be the executive and you want to be the one that is actually making the decisions on, the latest plumbing gadget or whatnot, you now have to bring that other, that higher degree education actually helps you to make that argument. At least it used to be. I don't know now. But I will tell you, when I'm interviewing candidates and I see candidates that have actually gone beyond their undergrad to do a postgraduate, whether it's an MBA or it's a master's in the field. For me, I have a bias towards education, always, just because I know what it takes to take on that discipline that I'm going to learn this. I'm going to get a master's in AI. I'm going to get a master's in data science. I'm going to get a master's in economics, which was my path initially before I switched to the MBA. I know what it takes. And so I actually have a bias.
You have that. But
a preference, I should say.
The preference is fine, but
It's a
no, but
preference.
I understand. I understand the question, I think, or rather the accomplishing getting your bachelor's degree is almost, in a lot of ways, it demonstrates you can finish something after high school, right? You've demonstrated you're on the path to adulting and you can
Yes.
accomplish this activity. But I love the way you frame the MBA or the master's program where you are now choosing a particular path to excel in something you're passionate about, right?
Yes.
And I
That's the
think
same.
that's that demonstrates the candidate or the person's willingness to go that extra mile.
That's exactly right.
I do worry about the cost of higher education, and there's a
Yeah.
the degree with which the costs are accelerating, and there's this value for, but then you see the charts, like the argument can be played either way, like I think, what's the saying, statistics don't lie, statisticians do, something along those lines. So I'm curious to go back to your experience around some of the data, right? When I frame some of the data problems that we've solved over the years, I don't remember who gave me the three V's, right? The volume, velocity, and
And
variety.
veracity or something, which is a
Oh,
variety.
veracity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Veracity, right?
Veracity. That's true. Yeah, the fourth V. I
Mm-hmm.
always forget that
Yeah.
one. I think the one I'm interested in is the variety. You just mentioned you know I too am very familiar with financial services data. I dabbled in healthcare way back. Way back. We were doing fraud analysis for
Mhm.
I think it was Tufts. I think, gosh, at the time it was data that we were analyzing for, like, how many. This now it'd be a simple query, but back in the day this was hard. How many men in the last 12 months have had a hysterectomy? I think we know the number. I think we know the number should be, or this goes really far back, but this was kind of like a, wait, seriously, people actually capture the various genders. Like, there was a whole notion. This is, again, now it's commonplace,
That's
but let's
commonplace.
say 20 plus years ago, it was
It
like,
was not.
oh,
Yeah.
or it was even
Yes.
something as simple as male, female, then the transitioning states, right? It was just unknown or
Yes.
undeclared.
Yes.
Handling
Undeclared.
something that one, as a technology person, would say it's binary. In
Yeah.
reality, it's absolutely
It's
not.
not.
And
Yes.
this isn't a DEI or a woke or a,
Yeah.
this is just the reality of
It's
capturing the
just a reality.
nuance of data.
Yes.
And
That's exactly right.
it was fascinating. It really opened my eyes, though. It gave me a different perspective when I look at data to be like, wait, are we considering every case? Are we thinking about this in
Yes.
all different ways? So
Yes.
tell
Yes.
me
Yeah. And you
some of
have
the,
to.
yeah, no, yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. What was some of the interesting things you learned about the variety of data, let's say, in the healthcare space or in the hospitality? Those are things yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I think in the hospitality, it was around the pricing, room
Interesting.
rates and room pricing,
Okay.
and just the variability of it, right? And so you have a hotel, and of course, I think now we all know that, okay, they play funny business with the room rates, and you just have to,
Yeah.
like, and now, like, okay, when is the time that I book that Waldorf Astoria versus when do I book that Ritz
Right.
Carlton versus, right?
Right. Yeah.
That, and so much of the pricing, and it's really based on, obviously, occupancy, but is also, like, at the discretion of the hotel management, right? Who's
Sure.
there and how much discretion they have. And you could, have an embassy suite that is priced one way in one market and in another, even in the same market.
Interesting.
Even in the same market, right? So same hotel pricing their room, same size room, differently, right? Depending on all sorts of external factors, right? That you as a consumer, you're not aware. Now, this was not a whole lot many years ago, but with the advancement in technology, consumers can now leverage, and play the system to their own advantage, being able to find those pricing loopholes. I remember there was a situation when I was working with a client, and I think it was either we had the data and we were working with them on price, and it was around the holiday season. And somehow the Waldorf Astoria price point came in at $1. I think it was like it was something that ridiculous. If it wasn't $1, it was something that,
It's like $1.
like, I think it was like $1,
That's
and
crazy.
it was crazy, and it was, it wasn't like it was like a system thing and a data thing, all of this collusion. I don't remember this specific, but all I remember was we everyone that was working project, like, literally lost our lead, and they had to honor the price. So they had to honor the price. You know, it was on for like just a couple of hours. It wasn't for too long. It was on for a couple. It was around Christmas time too, and
Like
I think,
goodness.
and then, yeah, and it was interesting because myself and the constituents of consultants, we were actually helping them to come up with a centralized enterprise data warehouse with more like data marts, right? You know, that cater to the different data domains and versus the end user EUCs that they had and all of, you know, like,
Sure.
okay, so we were able to use that to buttress our case for we need customer master, we need a property master, property, we need to know all of the different hotel properties, we need to be able to, you know, do all of the slicing and dicing. Where are they? What is the actual longitude, latitude, like
Like physical
pinpoint
location. Yeah. An application. Yeah.
right, the physical location of the property, and then using that to then, you know, influence, you know, at least factor into some of the pricing, so you didn't end up in a situation where your customers are able to book Waldorf Astoria for $1 for, you know, and it was open like that on the system for like a
Wild.
couple of hours. It
It's
was wild.
wild.
It was
Yeah.
it was wild. It was wild.
That's
So
yeah.
but yeah, so again, just, you know, seeing the different, what data can
Yeah.
get you to and what you can do with it, and the importance of data quality.
Mm.
My God, by the time I left that engagement, data quality, needless to say, it was like, it was top of my master data. Data quality was top of my
For
mind.
sure. For sure. Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. I can't imagine, like, as particularly the holiday season, and rooms go for
Yes,
hundreds, if
like
not thousands of dollars a
hundreds.
night.
Yes,
Yes. Yes.
yes, 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 yes. So you
Depending on
can
the market.
imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
can only imagine how many friends that person meets, which usually
Okay,
comes
let's
down
go.
to,
Let's go have our Christmas party at the Waldorf
yeah, yeah.
Astoria.
Yeah, right, right, right. That's the one time we can do it. One time we
That
can
was
do the
the only
bash. Yeah.
time.
That's too funny. That's fantastic.
Mm.
If we can, let's shift gears a little bit. A lot of questions that come up are around the interview process. How do you stand out? What do you find as some of the most interesting ways in the past you've had candidates like sort of stand out to you to make an impression?
Oh my, so what I'll answer the question first by telling you, sharing a question I don't fancy, and
Oh,
I
tell me.
don't care for it. When a candidate asks me, like, you know, my career journey getting to where I am, personally, I don't care for that question. I don't know why,
Interesting.
but I'm just like, but what, you know, I see as standout is I've had a candidate, and you know, I'm trying to remember. She asked me about, it was less about how I got to where I am, but it was more about like what drives me, what
Hmm.
thrives me, what am I passionate about,
What's your
and
motivation?
what's my motivation. And it actually, and I remember when this candidate asked me, I was kind of taken aback a
Hmm.
bit, and I said, actually, I like that question.
Hmm.
Like, it's like she's trying to get to know me without invading my privacy. And then we got, you know, into talking about data being my passion and this and that, and then we ended up finding and I could just see her face lighting up as we were having that conversation. And now, of course, I got into my flow, right? And so I think when you're conducting an interview, the person that is interviewing is a human being, right?
Yes.
And so while you as the candidate want to impress, like, oh my God, I know my, understand this, they can tell a lot about you. Now they've got your LinkedIn profile, and they're already,
Sure.
you know, they're really serious about you. They pulled your, you know, your social media posts. By the time you are in front of that, you know, interviewer, the company knows a bit about you, right? And
Sure.
and so they've done their homework more often than not. So when you now have that opportunity to say, show the human side of you
Hmm.
and engage them as a human being. So, Mr. Tom or Tom, what do you enjoy the most about your job? What are you passionate about? What drives you? What motivates you? How do you translate that to the people that are on your team that you're leading, right? And that also gives you a lens into the organization, what leadership style the organization values.
I like
So
that.
what you gather from that person. So be natural, be as much in control of that
Hmm.
conversation as they are in control, because you're interviewing them just as much as they
Uh,
interview you, right? So just create
completely.
space for your interviewer to be human,
I like
to
that.
to really relax, right? Create space for them, make space for them, and you take space as well.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that's great. We often forget that, I'm here for an interview. I'm here to do a task. I'm here to win this
To win.
opportunity, right?
Yeah, to
And
impress how good, how smart I
how
am.
great I am, right? But I think when you make it about the other person, right, and you bring
Yeah.
that connection to
Connection.
understand your like the motivational aspect of understanding what drives Funmi Balogun to
Yeah.
come into work every day. I know
Yeah.
mine is generally it's either money or snacks. So those are my two motivations. But I mean I wish I was lying. No, I honestly
Money
that's
motivates. I
yeah.
think on the money side, it's yeah, you're
That's
in the
kind of a
company of
given though.
like, yeah, it's a given. Otherwise, we'll be somewhere out there like,
Yeah.
doing freelance work. So
A freelance or just a cocktail with a
oh,
little
just
little umbrella inside,
somewhere nice and sunny, right?
somewhere sunny, feet in the sand, that kind of thing. But I love that advice, right? Make the connection. I've
Make the
and
connection.
I've heard this from many other interviewers. It's make that human connection, talk to that person. I think
Talk to the
that's
person.
fantastic. What are
It just there's a human being there.
I think that's a good way to stand out is to really get to connect
Mhm.
to the other person. And sometimes I like the other point you raised was about not asking something too personal or not trying to delve too much. Because like you said, your profile's out there too, and I can look into
Exactly.
and
You can look into it. You can
tread
look
carefully.
into it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can
you
look
should
into it. You can say,
know.
you should know already. Now, you could
Yeah,
ask based on you knowing, okay, I know I see from Fumi's profile that she went from this company A to B, and then there was a gap, and then she picked up company C. And so, like, what?
sure,
And then, you could ask a question around that. I
of
could
course.
tell from your profile that you made a pivot.
What
Is that
drove you
something
to
that,
make this change, or
right?
why did
And
how did you like that? Yeah,
how did you like it, and how has that translated to where you are now,
yeah,
right?
that's a big question.
And so I think then that shows that you've done a bit of homework about the person. And I think most candidates, they do know who they're going to be interviewing. I haven't interviewed in a while, but I believe that
Mm,
the company will say, okay, you're meeting where, Thomas Castriota at 11 o'clock, Funmi Balogun at 12 or whatnot. So you do have that information to
sure.
do your homework ahead of
I
the
like that.
interview.
What are some of the strangest questions you've been asked, or maybe I don't know, intentionally asked others? I've got I've got a collection of bad interview questions that I've asked in the past that I don't anymore. But I'm curious if there's anything that stands out that you yourself have been asked or have asked that you go, no, I won't ask that one anymore because that's
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing really comes to
nothing
mind
comes to
because
mind.
I've just recently participated. I've been participating in product manager interview for my company,
Hmm.
and so that was like a very intense. Probably went for like 6 months of getting
Oh
ready for
wow.
getting the rubric and all of the question bank ready. So it was it was a syndication of us working with a couple of leaders, senior
Hmm.
leaders. So really starting from like the very basics all the way to now. Okay, now we have the candidates coming through and we're interviewing them. So it was very structured.
Hmm.
I'm just thinking too. There was so one question that I've asked, interesting question that I've asked, and I really loved how again going back to creating the connection is I would ask the candidate to share like some bit of information about them
Hmm.
that I will not find on the resume,
Okay.
and so that actually, and I've seen. I think I remember the first time I asked,
That's a good one.
the candidate was surprised, but yet they did a good job answering the question, but they were
Hmm.
surprised. They were just a little bit taken aback by it. They were not
Yeah. Yeah.
expecting that question, right? And so, but they did a good job answering it. And so I think that's maybe one of the more recent interesting questions I can
Hmm.
think of is to tell me something that's not on the resume.
On your resume, that's good. That's a good one to
Yeah.
prepare for too.
Yes,
Even though it's now we've told folks, but that's okay. It's because
it's
then
another way.
you can always go.
I can always.
What's the best excuse anyone's ever given you for being late to an interview?
So I actually, of recent memory, I don't think I've had anyone be late to an interview. Just of recent memory. Yeah.
That's
Now, of
that's a
recent memory.
positive sign for
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
generation,
yeah.
I will say.
I
Yeah.
have to
Okay.
say, and actually, like I was saying earlier, structured interview program, right, that I was a part of from inception all the way
Mm,
to actually executing and onboarding really great talent. And it actually was one of the things that struck me was, wow, like, just the professionalism, the promptness, maybe a few minutes late here and there, but nothing egregious that would have caused me to just like dismiss the candidate or anything like that. Going back to before that, when interviews used to be in person, it was like traffic. The traffic was the major culprit, right?
Dog ate my homework.
Right, exactly. Finding parking, right? If you think about it, like, okay,
Sure.
so you've got the classic and it's parking, and I'm trying to think of others that I've heard. Also, of course, I've actually had, come to think about it, kids, right? Someone saying that they had to, make arrangement for
Take
their
care of the
kids so that they
kid.
could, take care of the kids so that they can. But I think because, the last few years, a lot of our interviews have been virtual, moved the excuse out of the way. So you're just, all you have to do is come on the screen. So you don't need to deal with traffic. You don't need to deal with parking. You don't need to deal with getting, I got lost. You need to deal with all of those other things
Sure.
that, right? That maybe were excuses in the past.
I have to say, as someone who was trained by one of my early bosses, his philosophy was, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late.
You're late.
And that's how he always looked. He looked at the world, right? And I love that. I never was able to do it.
But it was good principle to hold on to, right? To aspire to. Exactly.
I was an aspirational. Now I am. It's funny. I think some of it is maturity in my life is just getting there. But I do think that there's something to be value in being on time, being prepared, having your questions set up for you. You mentioned earlier that the human connection, things like that, being curious is another important feature for candidates. Being on time.
I love candidates. I love it when candidates come with curiosity. Just curious, and that you can tell that they've done their homework and they're not asking you the obvious question. That really is irritating when you ask someone the obvious question and they're genuinely curious and they genuinely want to know about you.
Yeah.
And I've had candidates that we've connected with offline, not just so that they can grow their, increase their LinkedIn connects, but really like genuinely connected, and we've actually had conversations offline. So
that's great. No, I think that's terrific. I will ask, the process has changed over the years, right? Now with online interviewing and the like, and I know you'd mentioned that in your current firm, you've done some sort of restructuring around the process and the role. I'm very curious as someone who's moving from technical program management into product management. I'm on my last interviews and such.
Wow.
How do you see the, thank you. Yeah. Well, not yet. I gotta make the official cutover.
Okay.
How do you find the role of product manager fitting into your organization or organizations in general, to make it non-specific?
Yeah. So I do think that it's a critical role, and it's a role that wasn't quite appreciated or properly labeled like many years ago, right? And now it's wow, okay. And it's a role that if you play it right, it actually allows the individual to be able to really like bring great value to the organization. Interacting with product managers that just want to do the bare minimum, right? But
everything's an MVP.
Everything is an MVP. And then what happens after the MVP? Okay, then you launch. And then what happens after launch? Then they move on to the next, product. No, right? Being fortunate to be part of that whole interview program that I shared with you really gave me a lot of insight into how, as a product manager, and myself having product managers within my organization, within my immediate team, can be such a broader space to operate in. A space that is so, right now, it's needed. A space that goes beyond launch. Launch and ramp is it's not like, okay, I've ramped to, right, and then I'm done. Is really nurturing and taking care of your product through its lifetime within the organization. And I think so for me, like it's really like how as an interviewer how I can check candidates to see, is this a candidate that's going to come in and you come up with the idea, you do your MVP, you do your 0 to 1, okay, now you're 1 to 100, but you nurture that product like your baby.
It's your baby,
right?
It's your baby.
It's your baby.
Yeah.
And it's a baby. So and that is such a service to the organization, because when
Agreed.
things start breaking down, we're not all scrambling helter skelter. Well, who's the product manager and who launched it and who did this and who, oh my God,
What were you thinking at time
what were
of
you
requirements, and
thinking?
what did you get?
Right, exactly. Right. You didn't do enough testing and we missed some opportunity, some ramp opportunity. And oh my God, our go to market was right. So just having that pride of ownership and product management ownership from cradle to grave. But I also think part of the challenge is I don't know that organization give product managers that runway to be able to really have that cradle to grave experience. I feel like in some companies, then it's okay, yeah, we're going to throw you to the next product or move you to the next opportunity, or they get burnt out or they find the next, opportunity outside of the firm. And so,
opportunity. Yeah, that's for sure. I think the discipline has, as you mentioned, the discipline has matured over the years. It's a popular role on LinkedIn. It's something that I at least my personal experience, I've always built software products. The question, I think, is the lens, the professionalism, the structure, the degree with which it was just a launch versus not only did it launch, but it landed and it grew and it transformed and it became, it lived its life cycle,
It lived its life cycle, and we're monitoring it, and we know the health of it as it lived its life cycle. It wasn't like a matter of abandonment, and it didn't become an orphan product. I mean, you look at many organizations and the product portfolios, like you have a lot of orphan products, right? And we're as a product manager, product owner, we're at the table and being very intentional about looking at when this product has ran its course, and how do we extinguish it? How do we expire? How do we, take it offline? And what is that? And I think the discipline, there's an opportunity there, there's a space there for the whole product, management life cycle to really lean in on to say, how do we actually fully, intentionally, strategically take a product offline and say, okay, just like data, right? The data has run its course. We need to retire that, we need to extinguish all of the millions and billions of rows of customer data that we've been carrying and holding on to, because it's now just, it's bugging us and it's pulling us down. Same with our product. Yeah. What's in our portfolio? Sure. Are we cleansing it? Are we just parting ways with it? How do we do that? And so making sure that the product managers, they have that long range view of I'm onboarding a product, I'm creating a product, we're launching, we're ramping, and then now we need to really think about how do we deramp it, how do we take it offline. And what I was also saying is, it's just like data, right? At some point, the data expires, right? Or all of the billions of rows of customer data that we carry with us expires. We need to expunge it. We need to extinguish it.
So it moves from the asset column to the liability column.
It becomes a liability.
And then we want to write it off.
Exactly. And our product can be the same. And so I do think that while I appreciate the structure and the maturity of that, the whole product management space, it would be great to see how we take care of the products when they get to the expiry state, right, of the life cycle.
Seems like there's some good interview questions in there around, how do you think about the whole life cycle of your product?
Yes, right? Yes, that's like exactly right. I mean, the PMs that I've interviewed are very excited about the early stages, the testing, experimentation,
but A/B testing and all the metrics,
all of this, the metrics, launch 0 to 1, 1 to 100. Okay, then how do we bring it back to 0?
How do we? If we have to, eventually. No product manager ever wants to sunset their product, but if you shift gears, if you consolidate, if you're merging, right? Sometimes
and then having the right metrics that really helps you monitor, manage the health of your product along the way. I've also seen that a lot of product managers are not really interested, because that's not the sexy part of product management, but that is such a it's really an important aspect of it, right? Instruments and having all of the right signals to help you monitor and be able to take action, in a much more proactive manner.
And I think instrumental to that is having a good set of product metrics that you're continually monitoring and checking and understanding, not just like launch criteria or success criteria, but operational metrics at some level, like the health of the product, how well it's operating, and then what's the business impact? Like these are really hard things to measure, but I think understanding them as as the product matures, as the product lands and
Yes.
gains adoption, what is the impact of the business? How am
What
I
is it?
shortening this process time, or how am I growing revenue to
With this
this
product.
function versus that? Yeah, no, that's great. Well, Funmi, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to do this podcast with me today, and really had a great conversation. It's always a pleasure talking. I genuinely
Likewise.
appreciate you. I'd just like to end on a note that what advice would you give to your younger self?
So looking back to my career and some of the choices that I've made and the choices that I have not made, I would say to my younger self, be bold.
Be bold.
Be bold. Be bold. Be bold, and also lean into the network, lean into the connection, build relationships, and just be bold in stepping into new spaces, right? Because not having that boldness can be self-sabotaging, and right. So yeah,
I think I love that advice, because particularly when you're young,
yes,
you can fail. And the ramifications are very different than when you've got a
very
house and you've got
different.
kids and a college.
Yes.
It's
When
a lot
you're
harder to be
young,
risky.
it's more acceptable to make fail. But failure is not such, even when you're not so young in your career.
True.
But it's just that the ramification gets greater as you move up higher. But when you're younger, it's not so much. And so just, stepping into new spaces, being engaged in your community, whether it's community of experts, professional community, or in your outside of work, whatever that community is, creating that space and being engaged and being active in it.
Love it.
Right. And then just making sure that you're impacting others around you in a positive way. So those are the advice that I would give to my younger self. And I think I did some of those. I was very active in the community, both within the company that I worked for and then also outside. But I will definitely say that the being bold aspect was not quite as, although some would say I was, but I think I could have been a lot bolder, take bolder steps.
You are the best judge of your own level of boldness.
Yes,
I guess
true.
Unless somebody says, hey, but
Yeah.
But then some people will always say, hey. So I would agree with you. Be bold, take a chance.
Yeah, people that would say, exactly. Yeah.
Well, again, my many thanks. I genuinely appreciate you taking the time, and
thank you,
really
Tom.
had a wonderful conversation, and I look forward to our next conversation in person, hopefully.
Same here. Thank you for the opportunity. It was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one.